So, the Winter Olympics have started in Italy, and American athletes are getting asked a question that 10 years ago, nobody would have even thought to ask. How does it feel to represent the United States? And the answer is kind of cool, actually, because some of them are saying, I'm here to represent something else, while others are saying, yeah, I'm conflicted, I want to be here, I'm proud to compete, but then they're very specific about what they're representing. Their families, their coaches, the communities that got them here, the communities like the LGBTQ plus community that they're part of the people who believed in them. But not this government, not ICE, not whatever that's supposed to mean to the world right now. And there's a lesson in that for us that I want to talk about, one that a lot of Americans have probably never been taught, probably never will, but here we go anyway. Hey folks, I'm Tad Sturmer. I'm a public historian and a scholar of American history at the Center for American Studies at the University of Southern Denmark and Johns Hopkins, and the author of A Resistance History of the United States. So, patriotism and nationalism. People use them like they mean the same thing. They don't, they never have. And nationalists on the right and left have worked very hard to collapse them so that any criticism of the state reads as hatred of the nation. Don't fall for it. The state survives on authority. Nations survive on people acting together. And when those come apart, which you know they do, loyalty becomes a weapon. Nationalism is loyalty to the state, to a particular government, a particular constitutional order, a particular arrangement of power. It says the nation and the state are one. It insists that to love your country is to love its government, that the borders of your affection have to match the borders drawn by the people in charge. Patriotism is lots of things, but it's definitely something else. It's loyalty to a people, mostly. A place, a set of relationships and commitments that exist whether the government represents them or not. James Baldwin talked about that when he explained why he came back to the United States from Paris to write about what the fight for civil rights cost. He didn't think of America as the United States. He thought of it as his sisters, as Harlem, as music, as barbecues at home, and he wanted what was best for all that, even if that meant opposing the government that claimed to speak for it. Well, especially then. And that's what those athletes are talking about, I think. That's what so many people doing this work are talking about. Veterans and teachers and nurses and actors and lawyers and farmers and poets and baristas and, yeah, figure skaters and alpine skiers. People who love America, who have served it, who have worked for it, and who have fought for it. To say they hate it is absurd. Does anyone risk for something they hate? But there's a confusion there that's baked in. It's baked into how the United States tells its own story about itself. No place tells stories about itself like the United States does. And that's because America, the nation, the people, the tangled and brutal history of how we got here, is not the same thing as the United States. And now, that's not mysticism, it's not nostalgia, I'm not Ken Burns, I'm an actual historian. And this is not complicated, it's just a historical fact. People and governments are not the same thing. Now, America, we can be sort of mushy about this, but it started becoming something 400 years ago, long before independence, long before the Constitution, long before anyone wrote "We the People" on a piece of parchment. The first governments imposed in America were English and Spanish, then British, with more or less government control over what happened on the ground as more people were stolen from Africa and more people who already lived here were pushed out or exterminated for their land. That was America for more than 160 years before 1776, just sitting there, being a place full of people living under a government that didn't ask them, simmering, bleeding. Now, Benjamin Franklin was a product of that America, born in the 1700s under British rule. People love to claim him, but so was Phyllis Wheatley, who embodied a different part of the same history. A nation was already forming. The British state was something else entirely, a framework that didn't even pretend to include everyone. It just got on with the exclusion. After independence, the Articles of Confederation gave us a loose structure for what was really 13 separate countries that had banded together to throw off British control and not do one thing more. That's the first United States. But the nationalists of the time didn't think that United States was enough, couldn't be loyal to that United States government. They were hungry for a centralized power, a stronger hand, more consolidated authority. They wanted something different. But the Articles did what they were designed to do. And they did it without enshrining racial hierarchy into a federal establishment. But then came the Constitution of 1789, and the wheels come off. That's the nationalist moment, when American identity got focused and defined and fixed on a particular nation state. Their nationalist project, born right alongside the formation of nationalism itself, statecraft as storytelling, use history to push a narrative about power and who gets to wield it. But the men who wrote it had a problem. They had to create a we the people while those people were still wondering who they were, cobbled together, forced together from so many places. Some allowed to figure it out for themselves, others put in chains or murdered for even trying. So the nationalists hijacked that identity, insisted on a coherence that didn't exist, in the image of the men for whom the government was actually designed. Joe McGill, one of America's great public historians, put it best: we the people was always we the people in this room. And even at the time, opponents warned James Madison that those words would get them into trouble. All those people left out of we the people would eventually think those words meant them. Go figure. It could cause problems, and it did, obviously. So that version of the United States, abusive, exclusive, built to protect the power of white men, operated above and on America for almost 80 years. At least until enough Americans, even people like John Quincy Adams, started to see the distinction again, started to see that the government and its constitution were not the nation, but the enemy of the nation. That to be patriotic, to love your country, meant to fight the nationalists who are operating its state. As Adams put it, to fight for the union of American principles that tied people together rather than the union of American states. To rescue America from the people running that version of the United States. To the radical resistance of the 1850s, that anti-slavery resistance was built on exactly that. And the Civil War was, in important ways, fought over it. And that first republic was repudiated, not defeated, and certainly not reinforced, certainly not fulfilled, repudiated. The amendments pushed by the radical Republicans transformed the country into something different, something where inclusion and rights and democracy had at least a fighting chance. A version where the American nation and its state might, maybe, perhaps, work together. It wasn't the last, because of course it wasn't. The nationalist storytellers got back to work, gutted those changes, rebuilt the old racial hierarchies under new names. It's what the Lost Cause is about. Look, the laws of slavery could be abolished, but the minds of enslavers and their hearts of their allies who benefit from it, not so much. There have been other versions of the state since then, since the Second Republic was established in 1866 and 67 and 68. Other constitutional moments, other transformations, the New Deal, the rights expansion of the mid-20th century. And now, maybe the unraveling of all of it, a restoration of the oldest patterns dressed in new language. Maybe not even a republic anymore, certainly not a democracy. But through all of it, America was there. A nation persisted underneath whatever state claimed to represent it. Family, friends, neighbors, the people. And this is where it matters for anyone serious about resistance history and resistance dynamics. How does nationalism work within and against any of that? And it's right there in the question these athletes are being asked. What does it mean to represent the United States? Now, today's nationalists, again, on the right and on the left, insist that America and the United States are the same thing, that to oppose this government is to hate your country. And that's a trap. It's not even a clever one. Because if your opposition is limited by your loyalty to this version of the Republic, whatever number we're on, Third Republic, Fourth Republic, ask a political scientist. Either way, to this arrangement of political power, even when it's the engine of abuse, you're always going to fall short. You'll always be negotiating within bounds that were set by people who never meant for anyone without power to win. And that's what we're watching right now, I think. An opposition that can't ask fundamental questions because the people running that opposition are loyal to a version of the United States that is actively harming America, and they can't see it, or they won't see it, and they certainly won't do anything to step out of it. But what they really can't see, let's get back to the Olympics, are what those athletes seem to be seeing instinctively. That you can love your people, your place, your community, and still not want to carry the flag of a government that does not represent them. America is this absurd, constructed, unnatural collection of peoples. More at it all the time, many who never asked to be part of it. Yet, here we are, the whole ridiculous mess of us. And that America looks more like Amanda Gorman and Bad Bunny than it does Jason Aldean. And that's not a statement about who belongs. It's a statement about who the nationalists have always tried to push out and who keeps showing up anyway. But there isn't room for everybody in this regime's version of the United States, because for the people running it, we the people still means what it meant in 1789. The people in their room. So the question isn't whether you love America. The question might be whether your love for America is limited by your loyalty to this United States. Whether you can see the difference between the nation and the state that claims to speak for it. Whether you can imagine an America that deserves your patriotism, even when, especially when, the government doesn't. Which brings us back to the athletes, the ones trying to explain what they're doing in Italy, who they're there for, what they represent. And they've been put in a challenging position, asked to wave a flag and stand for the anthem of a government that embarrasses them in front of the world. And their answer, that they're there for their families, their communities, the people who believed in them, has been treated as hedging, as disloyalty, as not enough, as hating America. But maybe it's exactly enough. Maybe it's the only honest answer. Maybe representing your families and your communities and the people who got you there, instead of government that doesn't speak for any of them, is the most patriotic thing an American can do right now. Maybe that's what representing your country actually looks like when your country and its government are no longer the same thing. USA, USA, USA. Do you believe in miracles? That's all I got, folks. Be careful out there. Allons-y.